Hello, and welcome to the fourth series of Innerstorm Games Presents. My name is Richard Cree, and this series is going to be about Legendary, the Marvel deck building game from Upper Deck. Actually, it's going to be more about Dark City, which was the first expansion for Legendary. Now, for those of you who are unfamiliar with deck building games, a quick overview is that you'll start the game with a hand of, not a hand, but just a deck of usually 10 to 12 cards. And you'll shuffle those cards together and do yourself an opening hand of usually 5 to 6 cards. Depending, 5 if you have a 10-card deck, 6 if you have a 12-card deck. Usually you have enough cards for 2 opening hands. And then what's going to happen for that is you'll have cards in your hand that will allow you to either buy things or take actions or give you points depending on the games. Dominions, a very popular deck builder game. I'm sure a lot of people watching this are probably already familiar with Dominion. A lot of you are probably already familiar with deck builders, but for those of you who aren't, we'll keep going. So I have my hand of cards, and I'm purchasing or I'm fighting or getting victory points, doing things with my cards. And once I'm done with all the cards in my hand, I discard them. And then I take the next set of cards from my draw pile, and that's my hand for the next turn. And when I'm done with those, I discard those. Once my draw pile is empty, I'm going to take my discard pile, I'm going to shuffle all those cards together to make a new draw pile, and we'll start the cycle over again. And of course, as I'm accumulating cards from the cards that I can buy from or interact with, those are being added to my deck, and hence my deck is building, hence the deck builder term. What makes Legendary initially different from all the others is that it focuses on the Marvel Comics universe of heroes, which that alone makes it pretty cool in my book. I love comic book superheroes. I grew up on them. Dark City takes it up a little bit notch, adds some new bells and whistles and tweaks and things. Because this is going to focus on Dark City, I'm not really going to go over Legendary all that much. We'll discuss a lot of that as we in the rules, but I want to use mainly Dark City heroes, Dark City villains, Dark City schemes. All those things we'll go through in the instructional video. So, you know what? Let's take a look at the instructions right now. So we'll be focusing on Dark City in this demo. I want to go ahead and run through some of the base cards from the main game that are required to play the Dark City expansion. So the first two are the truly basic cards, the ones you're going to start with in your hand. Those are Shield Agents and the Shield Trooper. And the Shield Agent is basically your recruit points. They're each worth 1 recruit point, and that's usually what you're going to use to start off to recruit heroes into your hand, into your team to be more thematic. The Shield Trooper, he's a basic attack. So that's just 1 attack point that you have in your hand to start the game with. Your core starting hand is going to have 8 Shield Agents and 4 Shield Troopers. There's also the Shield Officer, Maria Hill, who is cost 3, but she'll actually give you 2 recruit points. And so she's a good card to use to exchange to get those Shield Agents out of your hand and more Maria Hills officers into your hand. So you can get more recruitment per your hand of cards. The other, as within most deck builders, there's a junk card, which in this case they're wounds that are can be acquired into your hand. Usually wounds are bad, however, for some characters like the Hulk, wounds are actually good. The more wounds the Hulk has, the angrier he gets, the more powerful he becomes. Another unique card from the first game was a Bystander. In the base game, Bystanders can be rescued and added to your hand, each one adding a point, whether you rescue them either via a superhero's power or because they're being held hostage by a villain. Now in the game, though, there's 3 more types of bystanders. They've added 3 new bystanders: a news reporter, the paramedic, and the radiation scientist. And these bystanders can be rescued just like other bystanders. But now that in addition to giving you a point, they also provide a benefit, such as drawing cards or losing wounds. The bystander deck is also now drawn upside down now on the main board as opposed to face up, so that way you don't know which bystander is coming up next. The villains also have a set of core base cards. A Scheme Twist is a card that's in the villain deck that when it comes up is going to trigger some scenario or event that, an event that trigger scenario that you're playing may happen, may cause. So it may cause more villains to come out of the villain deck, or it might cause everyone to KO a hero or gain a wound, depending on the scenario you're playing. Also in the villain deck are the Master Strike cards, and the Master Strike represent the villainous deeds of the arch villain, the villainous mastermind that you're fighting in the game. So each villain has a certain power that triggers whenever a Master Strike card is drawn, and so these are all shuffled into the villain deck with the other henchmen and villain groups, and so hopefully they get shuffled in very well and they're not all up the front. So let's take a look at some of the cards that are specific to the game that we'll be playing. I chose to do an X-Force versus Strife game for this one. We're going to do the Executioner's Song from the old classic series. So to help represent that, we're going to take Cable, we're going to take Domino, and of course we'll take X-Force Wolverine. No, in a normal game we take 5 heroes, but because this is a solo game, we're only going to be taking 3. And as I already spoiled, we're going to be fighting Strife as our mastermind. And Strife is going to lead the MLF, the Mutant Liberation Force. Now, according to the solo rules, you're supposed to ignore the always leads. Strife always leads the MLF, but you are supposed to take one villain group, and since Strife always leads the MLF, I figured, hey, why not take the MLF as the one villain group for the solo game? We're also going to take 3 cards from a henchman group, and these 3 cards we're going to use the Phalanx, which is a henchman group. So we'll add those to our villain deck. We're also going to add 1 single bystander, and according to the Executioner Song scheme, we're going to add 8 scheme twists to our deck. Oh yeah, one final note. We're not just playing the solo game, we're going to play the advanced solo game, which means that normally we'd only include 1 Master Strike for the villain to be able to use against us. But in advanced solo, we're going to add all 5 Master Strikes to the villain deck. For those of you who are new to Legendary, let's go ahead and walk around the board real quick and just kind of take a look at what all is going on here. So here we have the HQ. This is where our heroes from our hero deck are going to be displayed, and we'll be able to purchase them from the HQ. We only purchase heroes that are here in the HQ. And so we take our hero deck and we'll place it right here where it says hero deck. Above that is our villain deck. Our villain deck has been specially suited for this game, which is the Executioner Song. And for this particular deck, because of the Executioner Song, which will be here, our scheme, part of the setup for the Executioner Song says that the villain deck will include 14 cards of an extra hero with no bystanders. So, because we're playing X-Force, and because we're going up against Strife, I thought it'd be interesting to put Professor X, kind of make it a little bit mathematic. So Strife has kidnapped Professor X, and we're going to try and rescue him. So he's in that villain deck, along with the Mutant Liberation Front, and some other nasty no-goodniks. Trying around the board, this is our bystander deck. This is where we're going to put our bystanders. Normally, in the original game, this deck was face up. But because we have our new unique bystanders, we're going to place this deck face down. Over our wounds, we can place those face up. Here we have our KO box. This is where cards that are discarded or KO'd will be placed. Below that is the city. What the city does, this represents the track that the villains will follow as they come out of the villain deck. Place our villain deck here. So as we draw cards in the villain deck, we'll place them first in the sewers. And as more cards come out, the villains that are still in the city will advance from the sewers to the bank, to the rooftops, to the streets, to the bridge. Now that's the normal order of flow. There are some villains, however, that will come out in different places. Some may come out on the rooftops, some may start in the streets. If they make it across the bridge, they've escaped. Once they've escaped, they're an escaped villain, and they're put in this pile right here. Our mastermind, as we said, is going to be Strife. So I'm going to put Strife right here, so you can be reminded. We'll put the, I will say, power cards. They're basically Strife's. Every time we beat Strife, we had to beat him 4 times to win the game. And so every time we beat Strife, we'll take one of these 4 cards, and we'll do whatever it says on that card. So let's just look at Strife real quick, and we'll do this again before we start the game in our regular play session, but I want to take a look at him real quick. That shows that whenever Strife's Master Strike appears, we're going to take that Master Strike and stack it next to Strife. He's going to get a +1 wound, or attack, rather, for each Master Strike there. And remember, because we're doing the advanced solo game, we put 5 Master Strikes in that deck. So Strife could potentially get up to a 12 attack that we'll have to beat. Also, we'll have to reveal a X-Force card from our hand, or we'll just have to discard a card at random. But if you remember, we're playing an entire X-Force deck, so hopefully that shouldn't be a problem. Maybe early on in the game, but not so much as the deck grows on. Or the game goes on, not the deck. It is, however, as you play the game more often and more frequently, you want that variety. You can play with maybe 1 or 2 X-Force members, or none at all. If you're playing with other people, you have up to 5 heroes, and I think there's got to be 40 heroes available to be played at this time right now. So that's 17 new ones came out here, and I think there were 20 or so in the original game. So close to 40 heroes. I mean, that's a good mix. So you don't have to use thematically space. I mean, actually it might be fun to send the Avengers up against Strife. But I'm rambling again, as you guys know I do. Let's see, here at the bottom we have our shield cards, which are just the Maria Hill officer cards that we can buy. And they're face up. We know what they are. They're all the same. And that is the game board. That's how it will start. We'll also have our hand of cards. We'll have 8 agent cards and 4 trooper cards that we'll shuffle together when we start. And that's basically the game. We'll go into some of the more details when we start. We'll focus in on the scheme more. Well, you know what? Let's go ahead and focus on the scheme exactly right now. We've kind of talked about what we're doing the Executioner song, but what exactly does that mean? So here's the scheme, the Executioner song. And we said that in the setup we have to add the 14 cards for an extra hero in the deck, which we'll put Professor X in there, all 14 of his cards. And so what's going to happen is that whenever Professor X gets played from this deck, he's going to be held hostage by whatever villain he's next to. So he's essentially captured by that villain. Similar to how the bystanders worked in the base game. So now, instead of a bystander being captured, this is going to be Professor X is being held hostage. And so we'll have to beat whatever villain is holding him hostage in order to free Professor X. Also, because we're not trying to hurt Professor X during his rescue, the villain that is holding him hostage is actually going to get an extra 2 attack against us. So his attack score will go up by 2, so we'll have to beat whatever his attack score is by 2 in order to rescue Professor X. And whenever we do beat that enemy, we gain all the heroes that have been captured by, so all the Professor X's that have been captured by that enemy. And what's going to happen if we draw a Scheme Twist out of the deck, this card is just going to say Scheme Twist, is we're going to actually KO all of the heroes captured by the enemies. So if there's any Professor X's up here in the city, at the time we draw a Scheme Twist, all of them will be KO'd. Now, just so you know, when a character is captured, he doesn't actually sit in this. So let's say there was a character in the bank, and we draw Professor X, and there's a character in the sewer, a villain in the sewers. We draw Professor X next. He would not push that villain out. He would actually go behind that villain to show that villain has captured him. So that would not advance the track. And we'll go into that a little bit more in detail through the actual playthrough. And then finally, then the bad guys will win. If we win, if we can beat Strife. And Strife will win if 9 Professor X's end up in this KO box. And actually, it doesn't even say this. It just says 9 non-gray heroes are KO'd or carried off. So what that means is that Professor X's could be brought over here, but it says non-gray heroes. Well, our heroes are non-gray. We have yellow, green, blue, red. So it sounds like this evil twist is if our heroes get KO'd, that counts towards the overall total of 9. One other quick note about the schemes and the scheme twists are that because we're playing the solo mode, normally what happened is whenever we do a scheme twist from the villain deck, we would KO a hero from the deck, the HQ here, and move him to the KO spot. Now obviously because 9 non-gray heroes get KO'd, that would end the game pretty quick because there are 8 twists in that deck. So what's going to happen this time, instead of moving it from the HQ to KO, we're going to take it from the HQ and move it to the bottom of the hero deck, and that way it'll help us stay in the game a little bit more. And that's actually one of the advanced solo mode rules. Alright, so those are the cards that would be used in the game. Now, for those of you who have never played Legendary before, I'm going to do a quick walkthrough of the rules. Some of these rules are going to be slightly different because you're going to be playing the advanced solo mode from Dark City as opposed to either the base game with 2 or more players or even the solo mode from the first game. So we'll start down here at the bottom with our HQ and the hero deck. So in a normal game, you'd have your hero deck of heroes that would be placed here, and you would fill up each of these spots in the HQ with your heroes. And these would be the heroes available to you to purchase or recruit at this point in the game. So down here at the bottom has a number in a gold coin circle, and that number is the amount of recruitment points you have to have available in order to recruit that hero. So in order to get Animal Instinct's Wolverine, you'd need at least 2 recruitment points to be able to recruit him. Now you can recruit as many heroes as you want to, depending as long as you have the correct amount of recruitment points from your hand. So if you had 5 recruitment points in your hand, you could get Animal Instinct's Wolverine and Ready for Anything Domino, or Disaster Survivalist Cable. So that's the HQ and how the HQ works. Above that is where the villain deck is going to go. So we place our villain deck in that spot, and next to that is the city. And the city is basically the advancement track for the villain. So each turn we draw a card from the villain deck, and in this case it's a scheme twist. So we would come over to the scheme, which in this case is the Executioner Song. I've already placed it down here. And we pull off whatever the special twist rule is, which in this case, KO all heroes captured by enemies, then play another card from the villain deck. So because we're doing Executioner Song, we've shuffled a Professor X card as a hero into the villain deck. So for purposes of this scheme, Strife has kidnapped Professor X, and X-Force is out to rescue him. So according to the scheme, anytime that well, we'll get to that in a moment. So whenever we draw a scheme twist, we execute the twist rule from the scheme card, and then we discard that scheme twist. It's no longer necessary for this game. Wow, they all end up at the top. Alright, so let's say we drew a hero. The first hero come out into the sewers. In this case, it's Wildside. Each time a subsequent hero would come out, for instance the Phalanx, that would push any other heroes towards the bridge and out of the city. Now here's Professor X. Because we're playing the Executioner Song and Professor X has been captured, anytime Professor X comes out, he actually will go behind the next available villain in the city. So he's not taking up a space in the city, he's actually going behind the city. Now if you recall though, whenever we play a scheme twist, all captured heroes would be KO'd. So if we were to play a scheme twist while Wildside had captured class dismissed Professor X, then class dismissed Professor X would be KO'd. And as we draw more cards, now here, Wild Side has captured 2 aspects of Professor X. Once we beat this one Wild Side, we'd free all aspects of Professor X that he has, he's being holding hostage. As the game progresses, each turn we draw new villain cards. Here, Forearm would be holding Professor X hostage as well. Here we see a scheme twist, so all of these Professor X's would be discarded, but no more villains would advance. Forearm would take another Professor X, and a Master Strike would be triggered. The Master Strike is basically the special attack of the Mastermind, who here is Strife. So for Strife, whenever his Master Strike comes up, he will get to add, we'll take that Master Strike card and place it next to Strife over here, and for every Master Strike that's here, they'll get to add +1 to his attack score. So if you remember earlier I stated that in a normal solo game, you only include 1 Master Strike. But in the advanced solo game, and especially in the case of Strife, or if you're playing Mr. Sinister, all 5 Master Strikes are added to that deck. Eventually you'll draw enough heroes, or excuse me, not heroes, villains. I swear there's more villains in here. That the existing villains would be pushed out of the city and they would escape. And once they've escaped, you can't fight them anymore. You don't have a chance to defeat them. If they escape with Professor X is KO'd and added to the KO pile. And remember, once 9 Professor X's are KO'd, that's it for us. So continue around the board, slightly out of order, the bystanders. So bystanders, normally we go face up here, and there are certain cards that allow you to rescue bystanders, usually bystanders, and like Spider-Man has a lot that can let you rescue bystanders that add points. They're normally face up because in Dark City we've added unique bystanders. It's now face down, so we don't know exactly who we're rescuing or what bonuses we'll get from that card. The wounds go right here. Again, those are just cards that are added to your hand to clog it up. The KO pile is where discarded cards go. Escape villains, any villains that have made it all the way through the city are placed here. Our scheme, to remind us that we're doing the Executioner songs and all the rules that go with it, is placed here. Our Mastermind Strife is placed right here. Also with Strife, there are 4 Mastermind cards that go with them, and each one's got a unique fight ability that we'll get to whenever we fight Strife, because remember we have to beat him 4 times. We'll get to draw one of these 4 cards at random, and we'll get to execute whatever that bonus is. Hopefully it's a good bonus. Sometimes they're not so good. He is a villain after all. And then finally, on the other side of the HQ is Maria Hill, who will cost us 3, but she'll also give us 2 recruitment points in our hand. And one other quick note too about escape villains. Escaping villains is never ever pretty. And so as a penalty for allowing a villain to escape, we would have to choose one of our heroes from the HQ that costs 6 recruitment or less and KO it. Now this is a rule in the base game. This isn't strictly to the solo game. So that actually will have to happen, and so any escaped villains will add to the number of non-gray heroes in the KO pile. Remember, we can only get 9 in this pile, and then we lose. So with that said, I'm going to reshuffle these decks and get ready for the actual game itself. Alright, one more quick note before we wrap this rules episode up. You may have noticed when I dealt the cards out earlier that each of these hero cards has a different color background around them. And also you may know that there's, even though there's only 3 heroes, there's a lot of different cards for one hero. And each card represents a different aspect of a hero. So for instance we have No Mercy Wolverine, Animal Instincts Wolverine, Sudden Ambush Wolverine. But each of those aspects takes on a different nature, a different skill that he has. So for instance, No Mercy Wolverine relies on his strength. And strength cards are represented by both a fist icon and a green border to help easily recognize them. Instincts is like a Wolverine claw icon and a yellow border. Covert heroes are recognized as a red border and this little targeting icon kind of thing. I don't know how better to describe it. Then next you have a black border, and those are tech heroes, and they have a little microchip symbol to help distinguish those. And finally our blue border cards, and those are tech symbols, and they have a little targeting icon in there for their symbol. Again, it's kind of hard to see here in the picture. But essentially each of those represents, again, a different skill set that hero has. Now if you look here at Animal Instincts Wolverine, there's a symbol down here that says not only when Animal Instincts Wolverine is played, you can draw a card, but also if another card has this Instincts symbol, you get to add a +2 to Animal Instincts Wolverine's attack. Now it's very important to keep in mind that this is in regards to another card that we've already played, not this symbol on Animal Instincts Wolverine. Another important thing to keep in mind is that you can only use this power once because it only has that symbol one time. There will be cards, or there are cards that allow you, that will say, like, for every other hero that you have play that has that symbol, you can stack those bonuses. So in that cases, like I think Iron Man is one that has for every tech symbol that's out there, every other tech symbol, he can draw a card for that each number, or he gets to add attack for every other symbol that's out there. So in those cases, if you played multiple cards first, then you can stack those bonuses to get this. But like in this case, because there's only one symbol, you only get that +2 bonus one time. But what that does mean, though, is the order that we play cards out of our hand is going to be very important. It's not going to be like some games you can just throw all your cards down and say, okay, I'm doing this and doing that. The order in which you play is going to be very, very important. So we'll have to bear that in mind as we're going through the rules. Also, above each little symbol, the green strength symbol, you'll notice there's an X on each of these cards. That top symbol is the hero affiliation that this particular hero has, or group affiliation. So in this case, this is the symbol for X-Force. Some of the heroes in the game are X-Men, others are Avengers, others are Spider-Friends, the Marvel Knights are in there, Shield agents are in there. So here, over here, there's a Maria Hill card. We'll throw her out real quick. So she has the Shield symbol on her card. So if we were playing with Nick Fury, he would get bonuses for all those Shield agents and Maria Hills that we would have. So that's just a quick explanation of what those colors mean, what those symbols mean, and we'll discuss each one individually because there's 14 cards for every hero, so it's 42 cards in our deck. Of those 14 cards, there are usually 6 to 7 individual powers for each hero. So I don't want to go into each of those powers right here. We'll go into them in detail as they come up. But I did want to point that out. Since this is the rules discussion, and I guess you probably should point out, I'm kind of assuming that a lot of people know how to play deck building games already. We talked about purchasing, but we didn't really talk about attacking. So here, these Wolverine slash marks have a number on top of them, and that number is the attack value of the card. I probably should do this on a zoom. Let's see if I can zoom in here. I'm going to go Alright, so we're going to zoom in on the city. So we'll slide these cards up here a little bit so you can see them better. But here are the Wolverine slash marks, and there's a number. In this case, it's 2+. It's 2+ over here. No Mercy Wolverine actually doesn't have any attack value at all, and neither does Disaster Survivalist Cable. What will happen is the villains that are going to come out into the city. And let's see if I can find one real. Oh, there's one right there on the bottom of the deck. So in this case, the Phalanx has a 3. So we'd have to have a combined total of 3 or more. Or actually, no, I don't think we tie. I believe that we have to actually beat that total. Now, quick check of the rules. All we have to do is equal it. So that's it's equal or better. to defeat that villain. Once we defeat it, he goes, and this is actually, I thought of this. In a lot of deck building games, the cards that you beat are actually added to your discard and then added to your deck and shuffled in with the rest of your cards. In this game, they're actually, they're not, they're just placed into a separate victory pile. And I don't know if it's, you can see it here. I'll try and zoom in. Hopefully the camera will zoom in with me. Come on, camera. There we go. Right there is the victory points. The one victory point for this card. So if you're playing with multiple players and you want to see who was the true overall winner of the game, you can count those victory points. So even though it's a co-op game, everybody's working to beat the mastermind, excuse me, then you can still count the points to see who really won the game. And I do like that aspect about this. That is, I like those games where it's co-op, but maybe some person did win overall, or you can discard that, not worry about the points. You just play to beat the mastermind. Depends on the group you're playing with. But again, I just want to point that out. I think that covers everything. We've gone over our scheme. We've gone over scheme twists and master strikes, heroes, villains, what we have to do to beat them, what happens when they escape, bystanders, wounds. I think we've got it. Let's go back to the chair. Alright, that's the rules for Legendary, or more specifically Legendary Dark City. And next time we'll jump right into the gameplay and get going. If anybody has any questions on the rules or believes I've left something out, since this is my first time going over the Dark City rules, I believe I caught most everything, especially those items that'll be pertinent to the scenario we'll be playing. Again, your comments and posts and advice, they're always welcome. So go ahead and post away, and aside from that, we'll see you next time when we get right into the gameplay. Oh, I forgot to plug myself. So for our website, we have www.innerstormgames.com. Our Facebook, you can like us at Facebook/InnerStormGames. We also have a Twitter account at InnerStormGames. And you know what? Go check out Upper Deck and Legendary while you're out there. But check us out first. Alright, now, we'll catch you next time.